Thank you, Olivier. So it's the last session of the day, so we're limited to time, but I think let's get some questions from the audience. I think, is this the mic for Q&A? There's one there. Just the gentleman on the left.
Hi, thank you. Having attended Intersolar Middle East 2 years ago, we all heard about, I think there was even a demonstration at that time, but at an exhibition. There was a Washington-based manufacturer, I believe, of a solution with no batteries, but using supercapacitors. Any information about that? That company I can't name because it's not correct to do so. This was 2 years ago, if I remember right. Washington-based company talked so much about supercapacitors, said that it would last 45 years. And they talked of a charging time of less than 30 seconds for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, what's called as tuk-tuk, and light four-wheelers. And after that, we have heard nothing about it, but I'm told that they put in a system to a city in Pakistan for three-wheelers. Is it possible for any of the panel to say something more about it? Thank you.
Is this the company Microtron? Yeah, with the supercapacitors. So does anyone know where they've been in the last 2 years? We did see them last year, actually. They were next to our stand.
I mean, generally you would combine supercapacitors with batteries. I mean, if they're promising 45 years, 2 years ago, of life, and that quick charging, and they're not commercially visible right now, I think you can presume there's something wrong with the with the basic pitch. Supercapacitors get hyped a lot for how fast they can charge, but they're not really a replacement for batteries. You need the huge energy storage of a battery, and the power of a battery. And I don't know. I haven't. Yeah.
Perhaps if they haven't been featured on Clean Technica, then
yeah,
that's a source I would check.
Yeah, sure.
Great, thanks for your question. Another question from the audience?
Maybe next week. This is very new.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally not a replacement. It's something that you are going to supplement with, but I think.
Yeah, one question there.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kiru from India. Can you guys comment upon the lifetime of the current existing batteries and what can potentially happen when they are not any more in a usable state in terms of disposable?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the manufacturer. Tesla expects that their batteries will last 15 years. BMW's batteries from Samsung SDI are expected to be similarly or even better with lifetime. There's a lot of talk about reusing batteries for stationary storage or reusing them for other cars. There's a lot of debate in the market. Tesla says that it makes much more sense to just recycle the battery and then use those materials again to create new batteries. They don't see a commercially viable path for reusing batteries at a large scale, more for recycling at a large scale. Some other automakers like Nissan, Daimler have been more focused on potentially reusing them as stationary storage. But what you end up finding, EV batteries and stationary storage batteries are different. So they share a lot in common, but they're different. And to optimize for a car is different than to optimize for stationary storage. So that's one reason why it looks like a more difficult path than you would think. But recycling, they should be able to recycle something like 95% of the components in the battery, which then just can be used to build another battery in various ways.
The reason I'm asking this question is, I think all of you guys are saying electric vehicles are good for the environment, it's going to help to reduce carbon emissions and stuff like that, and potentially help not just to waste material, but at the end, if the batteries are not recycled or properly disposed, then it can cause more fatal environmental disasters.
That's my main, one of my main criticisms with a lot of the evaluations of how green electric cars are, is they assume a single use of the battery, and all of the components in the battery, which is absurd because, like I said, about 95% of the battery can be recycled and reused, and there are possible ways to just use the battery for stationary storage. So any evaluation, which is practically every evaluation, looking at the environmental impact of batteries and electric cars, is making a false assumption that these batteries won't be recycled or reused, which they most definitely will.
So there are always companies who are doing some research in terms of more effectively utilizing these existing batteries and how that can be reused somewhere else.
Yeah, the market's so small at this point. There's not much that's been. There's some companies bubbling up for recycling batteries. In Tesla's case, again, they plan to bring all of the batteries back into their gigafactory and recycle them themselves. But for other batteries and automakers, I assume we'll have some companies developing and popping up that will be focused solely on recycling batteries and selling the components again.
There's a company in our office in London, sustainable co-working space, called Powerful, and they've just entered into a partnership with Renault to buy Renault's second life battery, so when the Zoe is finished. And they build home storage units, so their offering product is home storage units at this point. And the Marks and Spencers, they have an energy plan, so they offer these home storage units to their consumers. And I think what's really exciting, and you've probably seen some of the themes running through the last 2 days, is the role that storage has to play into grid management because of the responsiveness of a battery, so the ability to be able to dispatch energy back into the grid is much faster than any other storage or production that we currently have today. So with that growth in the storage that we'll see, I think regardless of whether the best case is to recycle, I think the electric car and the second life batteries will play a big role in home storage and grid storage units. So that ability for Renault to sell the battery to Powervault helps them to reduce the lifetime battery cost by 30%. And the price that Powervault buy from Renault also allows them to reduce their costs for the storage, so home storage then becomes cheaper. So there's a really nice relationship with electric vehicles and storage.
Yeah, that really helps to bring down the cost of storage, which then helps to bring down the cost of solar plus storage, which opens up more and more markets for solar, which is...
If I can also add just on the, yes, maybe 15 years is the expected lifetime, but I think most car manufacturers today will only give you a 7-year warranty on the batteries, right? So after 7 years, we still really don't know how these batteries are going to perform. But there is still a lot of juice in them, at least 80 to 85%, and that's considered depleted. You know, it's not good enough for the car, but it's good enough for some other use. And I think, building on what you said, Ben, I came across recently I think it was an article or a statement by some thought leaders about, just like we were talking about sharing cars and sharing buggies, etc. It's also about sharing the batteries. That with time, maybe in a couple of years, when you buy the Tesla or any other EV, you're not buying the batteries, you're buying the car, and you're only renting the batteries. So that, which is a completely different price scale. And then after 7 years or 5 years, you wish to return the car, well, you have not paid the entire price of the batteries. So the market is still going to change because there is value in these batteries for sure, at the end of their expected useful life.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good question.
Hi, my name is Ivan. I have a question to Karim. So right now there are a lot of discussion on the microgrids and blockchain. And do you plan to implement some energy transaction on blockchain with electric vehicles between homes in your sustainability city?
Haven't thought about it yet. So blockchain, yes, is happening. You need to look at the overall, our overall performance. So the city has a certain demand. It's roughly 16 million kilowatt hour per year. So we need to satisfy that with solar. That's about 10 megawatts. And then you have some distribution problems because you have some plots with surplus electricity and other plots with a deficit, like the villas. And that's a regulatory issue, right? How do you even that out? So at the end of the day, we don't have a surplus. Our goal is to be net zero energy development, and we haven't achieved it yet. So there's a distribution problem first that has to be resolved. But I guess what you're saying is if we had surplus electricity we can spare and sell, then perhaps we can get into blockchain as well. So that's still a couple of years away for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had one more question somewhere down here. Yeah, is it on this table here?
I have a question about the buses.
Sure.
What are your goals with this? What are your commercial goals with the bus project? Is it to feed IP into large commercial players like BYD, Proterra, Volvo, or is it to develop something that you would then bring to market?
I mean, the motivation behind the electric bus is to look into the integration of different components of the bus and to make it suitable for a climatic condition as the UAE. I mean, we're facing a lot of challenges with transportation in general in a country like the UAE. So we wanted to combine or link between our R&D efforts, the industry, the main players also. That's why we are currently seeking to speak to the major international transportation players in this field, to be able to all sit together in one room, discuss the technologies that we can deploy in the UAE, tailor these projects or prototypes to be tested in an urban community such as Masdar, having Sustainable City also on board. I mean,
But is there a commercial goal, or is it just a research and?
No, of course. The projected plan is that we are taking every phase step by step. So now we're in the development phase, looking into the validation and commercial also. As we speak, even though we are still at an early stage of the prototype development, we are also in parallel speaking to different potential partners or clients that we hope to gain as.
So we would basically be selling into a electric bus manufacturer.
I mean, of course, most at the end of the day, we are a bus manufacturing company. However, we do support the deployment of clean transportation. So we're trying to get all the right guys on the same table, and then have maybe a consortium agreement or so on to discuss commercial plans. Definitely.
Has there been so on the supply side, it's about finding a bus that meets the conditions here. Has there been much research from Mazda or other players in the region that shows some of the challenges that are faced with electric vehicles? So we assume that heat is a challenge and the dust and humidity is a challenge, but is there any hard evidence and data that can show clearly what the challenges are?
And I mean, similarly, BYD sold thousands of electric buses in China. Have you seen that these buses aren't quite up for the job in the UAE because of what you're saying, the heat and dust challenges?
I mean, definitely. We're trying to look at the global supply chain in this project. So we have current research being done into looking into the heat mitigation. I mean, our main concern is the heat challenge in terms of the bus, on how to maintain the operation of the bus, at the same time balance between the comfort of the passengers in that prototype. So we are trying to cover as much as we can in the market, looking also into the Chinese examples, of course, that have been deployed already. So we're trying to learn from the international practices available and learn from that in the validation of this prototype. Now the aim is not to have only one prototype. So the main aim of this coming one is to make sure that the integration of all these components can survive UAE climatic conditions, and then hopefully for the soon to come prototypes as well, to have an upgraded layout, upgraded components and so on. So step by step again.
So now Tesla have launched it, and the other manufacturers are eyeing up the region very closely. Lots of them have been doing testing over the summer for the extreme heat. I don't know any of the results, and I'm not sure if they publish them publicly, but maybe they can provide some insights into how their car performs in the heat.
But it's a good sign that Dubai Taxi just bought 50.
Yeah, they must be confident.
Must be pretty good. And Clem, you mentioned smart charging. Like you have software and hardware that goes into car sharing. Does it also is it also tied to some large charging networks like EV Box or ChargePoint?
Yeah, the solution is able also to manage smart charging with the stations.
So if someone
With the
has,
technology being on the side of the existing charging points or included in the charging points. So it's possible to manage the charging and then to decide when to charge.
and that's a separate product, or that's being integrated with electric car sharing and
This is
everything?
integrated in
all
what
together.
I call the eco-mobility platform, yes.
Any more questions from the audience today? No? Any more from the panel?
I can ask one more. with the sustainable city, you said you had 3% or...
Yeah, so 500 villas, we have 65% occupancy, so 300 villas, right? So 3% of 300 villas, that's 9. So today we have 9.
9 EV
Tesla.
drivers in your Tesla.
And that's just in 3 months. So we expect a sharp uptake, especially after the announcements yesterday, which don't really make a dent to the finances, but it makes you feel good. It's nice to know that I can park for free, I can drive all the highways for free, I can renew my license for free. You know,
And your projection of 15% would be higher than practically almost any city in the world and almost any country in the world.
we're looking at 25% by 2020. This is our target as a community, 25% EV
And
adoption.
the car sharing idea, has it been put out there yet to see what kind of interest, or have you put it out there to the community yet to find out how much interest there is in being part of a...
So we do, we have regular activities, some that I mentioned. I didn't mention we do test drives as well. So we soon we'll bring in the Zoe and whoever is in the market, and just to offer test drives for residents. Because the minute you demystify it, as you said, Zach, you get it, right? But so long as you're just reading about it and maybe hearing it from here and there, the minute you sit in it, it's different. And so what was announced yesterday, for example, we immediately posted. We have a community portal, so all that information is always communicated. And we have also a research dimension. So we work with Georgia Tech University, and who else is involved in this? The University of California in Davis. We have a travel behavior research project with them. So we have multiple surveys going on, and we get feedback from the residents.
Yeah, I remember I was covering EVs for 1.5 years or something before I drove one, and then I drove it and it's like, what the hell, why does nobody talk about how amazing these are? I mean, people talk about it, but it's just you can't explain it. And I'll end on one positive note. BYD, one of the largest auto manufacturers in China and in the world, said the other day that they expect China will be selling 100% electrified cars by 2030. That China won't sell any more non-electrified cars at that point, but it's huge, just because of the market shift.
But in that case, again, we have to look at the power mix. You know, if they need to change their energy mix in China as well, so that the EV becomes green from cradle to gate to grave. Right.
Absolutely. I think on that note, we'll draw the session to a close and the end of today in Intersolar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, Zach. Very lively. I think what my